Okay, I want to give you a brief overview of what the portfolio is going to be in this class. This is our final, this will be the final for this class that will be turned in during finals week. It will be due on Wednesday of finals week, December 16th. And so I want to give you kind of a heads up because some of this you actually could start to address fairly soon. And again, I'll keep reminding you of this just so that it doesn't pile up all during finals week for you. So first of all, the portfolio is based primarily on these 4 papers that you have already or will have turned in before the final, or before the final portfolio, I mean. So we have the personal learning profile, the cognitive approaches, sociocultural approaches, and equity approaches papers. Now, each of those you've turned in a draft, and I'm calling them a draft because for the portfolio, you're going to be making revisions. That's kind of the idea behind this. So I'm not asking you to do a ton of new writing for the final portfolio, but what I am asking you to do is to revise what you've already written. So each of these papers, again, you've already turned in or will have turned in by the final, and these are graded on a complete, incomplete. So there are points and there is a rubric, and I use the rubric just to kind of help you get an idea of whether you included the right sorts of things. But if you turned in the paper and you addressed the prompts, then you got the full points for this, because I want you to focus on the feedback portion of this to improve the paper. So again, those are kind of the 4 individual papers, and notice these are all the yellow papers here. And this is important because when we get to the portfolio, there are 6 pieces in the final portfolio. And you notice all 4 of those yellow papers are included in this portfolio. Then we have 4 new green ones, which are revisions of the yellow papers. And then there is 2 blue ones, which are new papers, new writing. Now, the number 2, context, site description, or in the actual instructions for the portfolio, I called it the multimodal site description, and I'll explain that in a minute. But that one's already actually kind of based on some writings that you've already done. So it's not a ton of new writing, but you're going to have to probably reorganize, and you might have to rewrite something, but the thinking around it is mostly done. So let me explain what I need you to do in this portfolio. So first of all, in the first draft, you're going to include the first draft as is. I don't want you're not going to turn in just the final draft for the personal learning profile. So in the personal learning profile section, you're going to turn in the first draft and the final draft and your field notes. Okay, I didn't include the field notes in here because I consider that kind of part of the first draft. Okay, so the final draft, again, is a revision of that first draft. Okay, then we have the context site description, as I just mentioned, or the multimodal site description. The reason why it's called multimodal is because I do want you to get some pictures of some kind or some videos or something. That doesn't mean you have to go take those pictures or videos yourself. In some cases, you're not allowed to do that. But if you could go to their website, for example, or some sort of promotional materials, part of this, and again, look at the actual prompt, but part of this is giving me an idea of what that site actually is. Again, you've done some writing and some thinking about this, so that shouldn't be too hard. Then for 3, 4, and 5, these are all following the very same, almost the same exact stuff as the personal learning profile. You have a draft. I've given you some feedback, or will have given you some feedback. You're going to make some revisions. You're going to keep that first draft in there, and then you're going to create a whole new paper that will be a copy of your first draft with your revisions, and that will be for each of those sections. And then we get to number 6, the reflection piece. This is a totally new writing. I do want you to do some kind of deep thinking. Part of it's going to be a reflection of this process for the portfolio. Part of it's going to be thinking across the theories in your context, and a couple other things. So just as long as you address all those prompts, you will get all of these points. Now, I do have on Canvas, I have some instructions for the final portfolio that are posted again at the bottom because of when it's due. This will be due Wednesday, December 16th, as I mentioned. This is worth 28 points, and you have to turn in the portfolio in order to pass the class. Again, look at these instructions, but these are just kind of a summary of some of the, a few highlights, as I mentioned. Please look at the actual Word doc or Google Doc of this, of the final portfolio prompts in order to know exactly what you need to address. But I show each of the pieces that you need to turn in, a little bit about the rubric, just things that you can lose points for. And again, go look at the actual instructions there. I will include some instructions because you need to include an original version and a revised version in this. I will include some instructions about how to do that with your Google Doc, or if you turned it in as a Word doc, what you'll do. So I'll have some specific little videos on that I'll also post in this Canvas page once I get those completed, those videos completed. Hopefully that gives you an overview of what the portfolio is going to be, and hopefully that helps you feel a little bit of relief, or at least better understanding of what the portfolio is going to be. Last thing I want to mention is that you've already turned in some of these assignments, and so you actually could get started on revisions on this final portfolio if you would like. Now that the portfolio prompt is posted, you actually could get started on this. I don't know that I would wait, especially for example, the cognitive approaches application paper, which for most of you I've given feedback to already, unless you turned it in late. So if I gave you feedback on that, you can just make a copy of that document and start doing the final draft. And start working through that. You don't have to do that right away, but I just mean instead of waiting until finals week, because each of these it's gonna take some time for each of these papers. I would get started on that earlier to try and address some of the feedback that I gave. The last thing I want to say about this is that ideally you're putting this all into one document rather than 10 documents. I'd rather not have 10 documents. I'd rather just have one document. So again, I will kind of show you how to do that. And hopefully that will just help me so that it's all in one place, because part of how I'm going to be grading it and looking at it is I'm going to be looking at your first draft and the final draft. And so it's just nice if they're just in one place. And for the most part, it won't take you very much longer to do that. So anyways, that's a little bit of the portfolio. Again, you can go to the final portfolio page on Canvas to see the more specific instructions in the Google Doc or the Word document.